Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of For What It's Nerd. Today, we're here to discuss Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 1, the beginning of a new season of Mandalorian. Very exciting. I say that I was dubious coming into Mando Season 3, primarily because I have a lot of issues with how Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau have kind of run that universe more recently. Dave Filoni has a penchant for kind of blotting out lore that has been created prior, especially because Disney is working on the premise that everything in Star Wars is of the same canon and the same canon level. It's hard sometimes when you see things kind of being retconned in some way or another. So I was dubious coming into this. Not that I don't think Mando is good. Mando is good. Boba Fett was a bit of a miss, but that was a different story. Mando is generally quite good, just not my favorite part of Star Wars. So and that's okay. There's a lot of conversation about that right now. Whether or not there's different parts of Star Wars and should you be able to kind of deal and enjoy certain parts, and that's true. I think yes, there is. For example, you need to only look at the books to see that there's adult, young adult, kid level books, etc. And like not just kid level books, but like kids as in like reading age, and then kids who are essentially like just learning to read. Like so, you have different levels of comprehension even within books. So that's a key example of how many audiences Star Wars is trying to hit at any given time. Never mind doing, romance ideas versus sci-fi versus a bit more fantasy versus, blah, blah, blah. We can go on forever. Basically, what I'm trying to say is I was dubious about Mandalorian Season 3. And this first episode actually swung me entirely the other way. I think this episode is a really strong starting point. It kind of removes the bloat of season 1 and 2, and not in a bad way, just that I think sometimes you got a show that can't move forward from the other seasons very easily, and this show is not doing that. Season 3 feels like a reset in a very interesting way. It feels like you're continuing with the story, but this is the end of Grogu's story, so to speak, and the beginning of Mando's Din Djarin's story. And obviously that happened. He had, story in the first 2 seasons, but this is more about him with Grogu along for the adventure this time, rather than the other way around. So very excited about that primarily, but also the fact that this season it's set up from the beginning. Kind of generally the premise of what the season is going to be about. I feel like season 1 and 2 it was a little bit more. You didn't know where it was going, kind of meandered a lot. This season seems to have a through line straight away. I'm not saying that those other seasons didn't have strong story. It's just it took some time to get to where it was going. You didn't know the end point, if that makes sense. And sometimes I think that's okay. Sometimes it's okay not to know an end point, but sometimes it's nice to have the end point, to know the journey, to know the end goal, and see how see what happens along the way, see the journey rather than worrying about the destination, if that makes sense. The old adage, the journey is just as important as the destination. But so the idea that Mando is trying to go back to Mandalore, he is trying to find a way to do that. He's meeting with these people. He's meeting with Greef Karga. He's trying to find a way to use IG-11 to survey Mandalore. He's trying to treaty with Bo-Katan. All these different things. Very interesting. Very sets up a lot for the season and how it's going to go. The Mandalorian factions in this episode set up another premise. And on top of that, the pirates in this episode. How are the pirates going to play into this story? They're obviously after Mando now. That seems to be the case at the end of the first episode. Are they going to be after him? Like, are they going to be causing trouble for him as he goes about the galaxy trying to reconstruct IG-11 so that he can get to Mandalore? Are they like the tertiary antagonists of this season, aside from the Mandalorians and what we can only assume is eventually Moff Gideon / the Empire, the remnants of the Empire, should I say? But yeah, so this season is shaping up already to be a good one, in my opinion. I know there's a lot of different discourse around it. There's some people saying that the pirates don't look particularly good, that they look kind of cheesy, they look kind of too kiddified, so to speak. Now, firstly, I want to say, actually, the way they were introduced was rather menacing. They want to use the now school that used to be a bar as a bar. They're not treating on it. They're not like, okay, we'll drink elsewhere, we'll come back to your office, but they are like causing problems. What else do pirates do? Like, I don't know, I don't quite understand the concern there. Like, I feel like that's like very pirate like. I don't think they're being childlike. If your issue is with how they look, like how they dress, I mean, what else would pirates wear apart from something that looks like it's being drudged together? I don't quite understand what people were wanting here. Like, you know, some pirates just look like pirates, and yes, they're in space, but if you want the pirate aesthetic, you're going to get pirate aesthetic. Like, you can't have anything else. Like, I find it curious. Do people want the pirates to look more like clone troopers or stormtroopers? Like, do you want them in armor? Like, I don't quite get it. Obviously, you could do that, sure, but you don't get the pirate vibe then. So it's weird to me. I will say, and their leader, Gorian Shard, does look very Davy Jones. Does also look like, and I find this one funny because a lot of people did mention this, and I think it's hilarious. One of the monsters from Scooby-Doo 2, and you know, Scooby-Doo in general, but Scooby-Doo 2, Monsters Unleashed. I haven't got the image to hand, but it's very funny. They do look similar. But Gorian Shard is like, that's what Star Wars is. Star Wars, I mean, the amount of names that are puns. Like, I'm a Gundai. Yes, I know this is in Clone Wars. I know it was a kid's show, but Star Wars is full of puns and camp stuff, and you know, takes a lot of inspiration from a lot of places. And I feel like, yes, slightly gimmicky, but I mean, they're not the main protagonist. They're not the main antagonist, should I say? They're not the main problem. They're like a fun little side problem that's going to prop up. I mean, maybe they do end up becoming a bigger problem, but you know what I'm saying. They're not the primary concern, and so I think sometimes you can have a little bit more fun. Like, I think the issue, and this is something that I find to be the case a lot in media at the moment, is that people want everything to be like The Boys or like Invincible. I've never really watched much about these two, but I know that that's kind of a thing that comes up a lot. Or like anything dark, really. They want dark, they want gritty, they want, and that's okay. Like, that's an okay thing to like in your shows / your media. There are options for that. Star Wars has never been that. Not once. Andor is the closest we've got to that kind of brutality, and it's still mostly implied. Like, I think people need to let go of this idea that Star Wars is going to go super, super dark. Like, if they ever do, great. I think Star Wars can lend itself to be super, super dark. If you did a show around, like, Sith, for example, you could do a lot of crazy, dark shit with that. And it could be fun. It could be really fun, because you know all of them are asshats and they all deserve it, etc. and so on. Like, there's no good guys getting hurt, so to speak. Like, it's fine, right? Star Wars always runs on a surface level. Yes, there's bad things that happen in this galaxy. Yes, torture happens. Yes, it's a fascist, you know, society. Yes, they have, you know, executions, and yes, they have genocide. And yes, it sounds comedic almost saying that and going, but it's lighthearted. But it is. Star Wars is not about getting deep into the analysis of bad things that happen in a society. Star Wars is about the hope that overrides those things. That's Star Wars has been about hope since day one. Like, that is like the core tenet of what Star Wars is about. Even when they do darker stuff or go into more kind of nuanced ideas or kind of more noir ideas, like Andor, the hope is still at the forefront of that. You know, yes, you see people who are hopeless, but they gain hope or are given hope. I mean, if you look at most Star Wars stories, there's either the chance of hope, there's the chance of being the underdog, there's the chance of, like, coming together as a collective to do something. Yes, for example, I've just finished reading The Fallen Star, which is one of the High Republic books. In that book, a lot of bad things happen to a lot of Jedi, and yes, you're sat there going, oh my gosh. Like, it really hurt. Like, oof. You think, oh my gosh. That's a spoiler, by the way. Sorry. It's been out for a while. You guys deal with it. But you think, oh my gosh. But you know, overall, you know that this is like, that's like Revenge of the Sith ending, right? Revenge of the Sith, yes, it's a tragic ending. And, you know, unmistakably, it's a tragic ending. But you already know when you finish watching Revenge of the Sith that A, there are other movies / stuff that's going on, because obviously there was movies created before that. But B, that there is hope in that galaxy because Luke and Leia have been given to their respective families, and they are the future. There are Jedi still left in the galaxy. There are these children who are essentially the child of Anakin, children of Anakin Skywalker, and the implication is the story continues, right? This isn't like this big grim dark thing that just ends and it's like everyone's dead and like even Rogue One, right? Rogue One kills off all of its main cast, and the thing that is said afterwards straight away by Princess Leia, hope. That is the premise of Star Wars. So if you're looking for something that is darker than that, go to those things that are darker. Like, you will always get, themes of darkness in Star Wars because the light versus the dark, that is also a primary theme. But it's the light persevering despite the dark. That's the core tenet. Like, don't get me wrong, I like my Sith stuff. I like Sith lore, I like Sith characters. In fact, some of my favorite characters are Imperial characters. But wanting this darkness and this depth of character, like, that comes from just like absolutely being brutal all the time. And to be honest, actually saying depth of character feels wrong because it's not even depth. It's just, people argue that dark characters are depth, but I think it's just, don't get me wrong, it's zeitgeist, right? So it's a reflection of what's going on at the time. The world isn't necessarily in a great place, and so people like to see the darkness of that kind of, those ideals represented in their media, because then they feel like they can connect with the media. They feel like the media understands them. But fun, crazy, quirky media is also relatable, in my opinion. How many people are you around that go on TikTok every day? TikTok is crazy. TikTok is full of stupid shit. We imbibe that. We laugh. We say stupid things to our friends, and we laugh, and we take solace in saying those stupid things. But when someone, for example, like Mando, says a line, that's really using your head in this episode, because IG-11. Sorry, this is a spoiler, by the way. IG-11, the body is going rogue, and a protocol droid hits Grief Karga's, like a bust of Grief Karga into the IG-11, so a head hitting a head, and someone was being intelligent. It was a multi-layered head pun. But some people go, oh my gosh, the Marvel humor, I can't believe they're doing Marvel humor. And then people will go on TikTok and say the most stupid shit known to man and laugh. Like, do people not see the kind of dichotomy in that? Like, if you're allowed to say stupid shit, why aren't these characters allowed to say stupid shit? Must they be serious in every single line they deliver? Like, even in a dark show, you can have stupid shit happen. Like, for example, I was just watching a TikTok where there was like, I don't know if it's actually a deleted scene or whether it's like whatever it is, but it seemed like, from what I gathered, that Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, which is a really good movie, apparently, I haven't watched it yet, but in that there was someone who was there's a character called Death in that's like a wolf. Anyway, there was a reference. Basically, they did a scene where they did a reference to the Megan dance, which was a big theme, like a trend on TikTok. It became a big thing with loads of like cosplayers going out and doing it. Basically, it's just a fun little dance that was in one of the scenes in Megan. And they did it as Death doing it in Puss in Boots as a deleted scene. Like, now, I don't know if that is actually a deleted scene or what. It might be someone who's kind of recreated it, so to speak. I don't think that's true. I think it is a deleted scene, but covering my ass because I've been wrong about these things before. But basically, what I'm trying to say is that's a bit of fun. That's a bit, and yes, it's an animated movie, but animated movies can be. Let's not mince words here. Animated movies can be fucking crazy as well. Like, going back to Invincible as a TV show, that was crazy. That was a cartoony art style. Still crazy. Still like got like blood and gore and stuff. And again, I haven't watched it. I know about it, but what I'm trying to say is that any medium can be serious. Any medium can be jokey. And basically, what I'm trying to say is, and this goes back a long way. This goes back to Renaissance era. The tragedy or the comedy, right? I've totally disagreed with this for forever. The idea that tragedy and comedy are separate. They can be. You can have a really tragic thing and you can have a really comedic thing, and they can have no bearing on one another. But also, you can have comedy in tragedy, and you can have tragedy in comedy. Like, everyone knows that's possible, right? Like, life is full of so many different potential options as to things that can happen. And I don't know why people are so adamant for it not to be portrayed in their media. Like, if you want something that you can connect to on some level, why aren't you happy when you see something that's stupid and funny and quirky and whimsical on your screen, when you want that in your own life, essentially? Every time you scroll on TikTok, every time you look for the next hit of dopamine when you watch a funny video. That's my opinion. I think maybe that's going to rile some people. Maybe that won't be popular to a lot of individuals, but that's how I see it. I see not everything needs to be dark, not everything needs to be crazy. Like, don't get me wrong, sometimes it can be cheesy and sometimes it can be weird, but I read a comic book today from Devil's Reign, which is a comic about Kingpin being, Daredevil, Spider-Man villain, Kingpin being the mayor of New York. And in that comic, you see Jessica Jones facing off against US Agent, and she calls him Captain Americant. That, if that was on screen, someone would hate that. Guaranteed, someone would hate that. And yet, it's in the comic. It's in the comic. It's there. It's being a bit fun in this event that is actually quite serious and quite brutal. But this is what I mean. There is parts of interest and intrigue that can also have humor within them. And what I'm trying to say is that sometimes it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that a project's really serious. It can have humor in it still, in my opinion. That's how I see it. Going back to Mando, though, because we have done a big tangent there, I think Mando had the right level of plot, with reintroduction of character, with development of character as well, in terms of Mando and what he's doing, where he feels he's at. I'm excited to see where it goes. I think it's a good first episode. I think also, and this is where I was trying to go earlier, and I kind of sidetracked myself, but I think it's really nice to see aliens in Star Wars again. Now, I know that sounds very weird to say. It was one of my critiques of Andor, actually, even though I did really enjoy Andor, is that I feel like Star Wars under Disney has suffered from lack of aliens. This time, not so much. We had Nikto, we had Klatooinians, we had Ikochi, or Iktochi, I forget how you say it. We had, what was the other one? I forget, Nikto, what's the other one? Not Nikto, it's Weequay as well. Trandoshans, it felt like the pirates were actual, they're the species we've seen in Star Wars. There's a shorthand there, and it's very nice. It's nice to be able to get familiar with these characters, even though they're one scene and done for a lot of them. But it's nice to see them, and it's nice to, deal with them. It's nice to understand where they're at and what they're doing, and place them immediately into Star Wars. Aliens being aliens, there's always going to be some new ones. There's always going to be some that are only used once or used a few times and then move on. Gorian Shard, a lot of people are saying that we'll probably never see another Gorian Shard species. It'll probably be him and that's it. Now, maybe that's probably true. We've had that before with species showing up and then just disappearing. Aura Singh, I think, has only recently been given a species, because in Legends she was two different she was a human crossed with a species we never learned that it was. But now in new canon, she's an actual species. Her people are a people. She's not a hybrid, so to speak. She's a fully fledged Delphidian, I think it is, or something like that. And there's more of her now. There's more of her species now. But what I'm trying to say is that there's going to be new aliens, and there's going to be ones that are only a few ever shown on screen, so to speak. But that's okay. What I mean is that Star Wars has an established amount of aliens now. Let's integrate old aliens with new aliens, and because I feel like that's something that the sequel trilogy did not do. They made all new aliens most of the time, even when other aliens would have very much fit into the same slot and same overall design as well. I think that was the problem with a lot of the aliens in, for example, The Last Jedi, was that a lot of the aliens looked reminiscent of other aliens, but weren't quite the same, and it was weird, right? So that's my opinion on that one. I think there's a lot to to enjoy about Mando season 3 so far. I think it's going to go in a really interesting direction. Oh, one thing I do want to mention is the Rebels connection. I nearly forgot about that. Seeing Grogu see the Purgils, the space whales, that are obviously a direct link to season, I think it was season 2 of Rebels, and then obviously season 4, the finale of Rebels, was very interesting. Obviously, we all believe that there's going to be this kind of like big crossover eventually between all the Mandoverse, so to speak, shows. I think that's kind of the start of this. I think that's kind of the inkling of what's to come. You know, Ahsoka and then Skeleton Crew, and then kind of seeing how they deal with Thrawn, because Thrawn is seemingly the end goal, the end villain of this all, and I'm excited to see what happens there. I'm excited to see what comes of Thrawn. I hope they do him justice, because that is something that links back to what I said at the beginning. I am dubious, and I know a lot of people disagree with this. I know a lot of people think that like Dave Filoni or Jon Favreau should be in charge of Star Wars now, but I think people who dislike oversight, who just like being part of a bigger collaborative effort, can be problematic. And that's not me saying that, you know, other individuals within Lucasfilm don't also seem to be problematic in other ways. You know, I'm not going to get into the Kathleen Kennedy debate, but basically, you know, there's other people who haven't done particularly a great job at managing Star Wars, and, you know, Star Wars has been on a downward cycle, so to speak, generally speaking. It hasn't had a movie in I don't know how many years, for example. So there's obviously missteps happening at Lucasfilm, and all I'm trying to say is that I wouldn't like them to be continuing to do some franchise people who take time to, you know, understand the law on a wider scale other than just the shows and the movies, by going back on what they've said as regards what is canon and what isn't canon, and what's on the same level of canon and what isn't. You know, the only thing that's meant to be non-canon right now is Star Wars Visions, which is understandable because it's a kind of show that's meant to like, it's a what if kind of thing. And then, you know, Lego shows and stuff like that. Yeah, I hope that they keep on that path. I hope they don't suddenly start retconning things to shit, because it would be disappointing. But I can't fault them so far with Mando season 3. So he is hoping for another. I'm not sure how many episodes in this season. I'm going to say 10 overall, probably 10, maybe 8 to 10. Let's hope for another great 7 to 9 episodes, whatever it ends up being. Guys, thank you all. I stumbled over my words. Great. Thank you guys for watching / listening. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. And as always, I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.